The testosterone will act as a multiplier for your positive lifestyle. Problem is, the way that multiplication works is that if you are not ticking any of the boxes, if you're not exercising, if you are not eating well, if you are not working on achieving good body composition, if you are not hydrating properly, if you are not getting a regular sleep schedule with a good amount of sleep, if all of these things are off, then, and they're all 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you could multiply all of those by whatever testosterone dose you want. It's still going to be 0. Okay, people, welcome to another episode of my solo ramblings podcast here for Victory Men's Health. When I receive emails, messages, DMs, or have consultations with clients, one of the most popular topics and one of the things I see the most discussed online is relating to the early stages of treatment, particularly the first 6 to 12 months, but with emphasis on the first 6 months. Now, this makes a lot of sense because if we have a whole bunch of content, a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of groups that people can interact with, it makes sense that the majority of those people are seeking out information for something new that they haven't heard about, either that they're about to start or have already started. So this makes sense. And the thing that I would want to say to everyone who is making these comments, asking these questions, looking for guidance within that first phase of treatment, I'm just going to say it in this podcast episode rather than reply to each and every comment I see about the topic. I think that's a good use of time. But I also think it's a good podcast topic because I know that a lot of people listening to this are either considering starting TRT soon, that's why you're listening to it, or you're within the first 6 to 12 months of treatment. I know that that's going to tick the box for maybe even more than 50% of the audience. I mean, it would be interesting to know. So the part that you have to understand is that TRT takes more time than you would like to work. And that's the reality of it. I spent multiple years debilitated by horrific vertigo that made it very difficult for me to just walk down a hallway without holding onto the walls. I know what it's like to feel terrible, to be given a treatment, or in this case, a rehabilitation protocol, and to want it to work straight away. I know what that's like. I know what it's like very well. I know what it's like to feel terrible and want the solution to work now or tomorrow or next week. The problem is that no matter what you do, no matter what peptide you take or supplement that someone with some affiliate code sells you on the internet, there is nothing that is going to significantly expedite that timeline. That is the reality of it. That's what you need to know. So there are things that you can do and things that you can and should understand that is going to make this a whole lot better. So number one, and Dr. Todd Lee has spoken about this quite extensively in a number of videos. So credit to him for bringing this up in terms of the vernacular and vocabulary around the topic. I'm not going to get too sciencey, but we need a little bit of science here for the foundation. So when you take testosterone, it agonizes the androgen receptor. So the testosterone comes in, or its converted metabolite DHT comes in and activates the androgen receptor. It's like a key going into a lock, or it's like pressing a button and turning on a light bulb. The analogy I've used for a long time is it's like the testosterone's flying around the pinball table, and when it hits the bumpers and you get the points, that's like it activating the receptor. And this kind of produces two things. It produces an acute effect, which is the effect that you are subjectively experiencing, that you are aware of. But then it produces a downstream DNA transcription effect. So what does this mean? This means that it does stuff from chronic exposure to the thing over time. And this is the outcome of treatment that leads to the symptom resolution, or you becoming more like the person that you want to be, but it takes time. An example that everyone watching this will remember is puberty. When puberty begins, there are acute, immediate effects, but then over multiple years, the child goes through adolescence and then becomes an adult. This is due to the chronic exposure to the hormone signaling over time. So if a teenager or a child, preteen, right? Correct word. 12 years old, just hits puberty. If they were frustrated that they weren't a full-grown man, a full-grown adult with androgenic adult masculine features, we would just laugh it off. And we'd say, son, that's going to take time. Enjoy the ride. Takes time. Takes multiple years. Well, that whole cascade and signal happened because luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone get switched on, the signals that get shut down from TRT. And we get a flood of hormonal signaling. In this instance, you've just taken testosterone and either used it topically or injectably, and you have increased your testosterone multiple fold. And a similar timeline and cascade of events is going to occur. So if you were 8 weeks into puberty or 16 weeks into puberty, you would not expect complete outcome of that phase. If you are 8 or 16 weeks into TRT, how you feel or how you don't feel has nothing to do with the long-term treatment outcomes that you are hoping to achieve. Nothing. But this doesn't mean that TRT takes 5 years to kick in. It doesn't even mean it takes 1 year to kick in. The next thing that I would like you to be aware of is that assuming that you look after yourself with consistency, your results should continue to grow and build relatively exponentially. There can be a little bit of a honeymoon period, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then it's just linear up. If you're listening to the audio, I'm just holding my arm diagonally up in this instance. And you will have a linear increase in the benefits and outcomes that you are hoping to achieve. The part that people need to know is that first appointment that I would hope you are having, if your provider is not checking in within the first 16 weeks, ideally 8 to 12, in some cases 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what's going on, that is a red flag to get a better provider. If you're in the States, go to Victory. If you're elsewhere, check out my TRT Academy or Instagram. I've got a big list of people that are good. It's not that big, but there is a list. So when you are having that first appointment, the purpose of that first appointment is not based on symptom resolution. Has nothing to do with it. It's barely even a question. And this may be shocking because you're like, well, I've been taking this treatment for 2 to 3 months. I should feel better. No. You might. There could be a honeymoon effect where you get some really strong acute benefits because of the oversensitization to a new stimulus. But it is very, very unlikely, and at the stage of treatment clinically, kind of irrelevant if you have resolved your negative symptoms. What we are looking for, and I wrote about this in my book, TRT 101, 4 years ago, this first appointment is to make sure that your levels are safe and where they should be. I'm going to talk about the reference range. Don't freak out. I'm not going to list 4 different units of measurement to explain this. And I'm going to talk about total testosterone, not free, because total is a measurement of the amount that you are taking. So if you start, and I would hope that this process is, if your practitioner starts you on 120 to 150 milligrams a week, let's say, that tends to be the average. That will typically take the average person, 8 to 9 out of 10 people, to the top quartile of the reference range to maybe 50% above the top of the range, because the range is in the gut. This is a good place to settle and to start for 6 months. Maybe even longer before titrating up. Your body needs to get used to it. But it also needs to be enough of an increase from your baseline that it makes a difference. Then you can titrate up. It's not about, at 8 weeks, I don't feel fantastic, so that means I need more testosterone. I completely get the rationale, because if you were taking any other drug or any other medication for any other treatment, and you went back to the doctor after 3 months, and you said, I don't feel better, the solution would be to change the drug or give you more, in most cases, but not with hormone replacement therapy. This is the part that patients need to understand. And this is the part that doctors, I would hope, understand. Many don't, but the good ones do. So if you have your levels go through the roof, let's say up to like 2,000 nanograms per deciliter from 120 milligrams of testosterone, which does happen. maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 30 people, but it does happen. Or you're like halfway in the middle of the reference range. Let's say you're taking 150 milligrams a week and your total's like 500, 550, and you're doing everything right. Sucks to be the second person, but not the end of the world. These people need a dose adjustment, not based on improving their outcomes, based on just putting them to a level that their body is going to settle around, have all the internal enzymatic processes, all the stuff that has nothing to do with feeling like a man or how hard your dick is, all of that other really fucking important stuff, that all has to happen. It's not just about how you feel in the gym, how driven you feel, how motivated you feel, or how much you want to have sex. That is the outcome of becoming objectively healthier as a human organism from having that long-term DNA transcription effect. And a whole bunch of other stuff needs to be in alignment that has nothing to do with injecting testosterone. It has everything to do with getting enough sleep, going to bed at the same time, drinking enough water, getting enough sunlight, eating the right food, not being overstressed, not being over 15% body fat. All of these things also really important. If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below. All we're looking for at that first appointment is to make sure that your levels are what they should be. Make sure that you've responded to the medication appropriately. Now, and I mentioned in the book as well, and I stand by this, you may have a 10 or even 20% improvement in your symptoms at that first appointment. That is something to be celebrated. And this is the part that people have to change their mindsets on. And if you don't change your mindset on this, I can almost guarantee that you are going to screw up your treatment, because you are going to get frustrated, you are going to be reactive, and you are going to change something or take something else or stop taking something you should be taking. And then you're going to have to go back to your provider and say, I messed this up, and then your timeline's going to get blown out. So please pay attention. That 10 to 20% improvement is something that should be celebrated. It should not be complained about that you still have 80 or 90% of the way to go. And this, again, is something that you have to learn. It's not because you're stupid. It's not because you're dumb. It is because you're wrong, but it's because you haven't been taught the right thing. And that's okay, because it's different. And a lot of doctors don't understand this either. The amount of time that TRT takes to have the effect that you're looking for, if you've been hypogonadal for multiple years or potentially your whole life, it's probably going to take a similar timeline to what puberty took to be 100% complete. Dr. Keith Nichols just put up a fantastic lecture showing that erectile function on TRT improved after, the number is escaping me, it was a 4-hour lecture, but I think 9 years, something like that. Continued improvement for 9 years. So if you're at 9 weeks and you're saying my dick's not getting hard enough, it's gonna sort itself out, but it's gonna take more time. Now, I think you get the majority of the benefits from two things. One is giving it enough time to, have this be, and this is what I've been referring to for a while. You need this optimal testosterone level to become your body's default state. Now, I don't know how long that takes. I don't know if there's a point that just goes, oh yeah, this is my default mode now. But I would say about 1 to 2 years is when you really start to get the majority of the benefits of this. But I would say you get 50% of the benefits in the first year and 50% in the years after. I think that's reasonable. The thing is, though, that at what point in this linear timeline of improvement do you feel good or do you feel okay? Because you might get to a 6 or a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in 6 months. That's fantastic. If you started at a 2 out of 10, that's amazing. Part that we have to do is celebrate how far we've come, not how far we have to go. And this is true for all things in life, but especially hormone replacement therapy. If you get 6 to 12 months in and you're like, I'm 80, maybe 70% better, but still have a little way to go, cool. You've been on TRT for a year. Give it 2. Work on all the other stuff. There's nothing wrong with your protocol, assuming that your protocol is, proper administration frequency and a decent dose. There is nothing wrong with your treatment protocol if you are not 100% better within the first year, because you are still on the trajectory and timeline upward. And what you have to do is mentally celebrate how far you've come. If you're 50% better at a year, let's say you get the first 50% of benefits in 12 months. The way that you have to look at that is celebrate the fact that you have come 50% of the way, not that you're 50% away from the destination. And what you have to understand is that this is a feature, not a bug. There is nothing wrong with your treatment. If you stall and plateau, or you regress for a prolonged period that's not an obvious lifestyle factor as to why. Like if you go back to your provider and say, hey, I'm not sleeping and my sexual function is not good and my body composition has gotten worse. I think there's something wrong with my treatment. And the provider goes, well, has anything changed in your life? And you go, yeah, I'm getting divorced. I stopped going to the gym and I've started drinking, a couple of drinks every night. Well, that's going to cause a problem that has nothing to do with your treatment. So only if things regress as an independent variable, meaning things go backwards for no identifiable cause, or things plateau for a prolonged period for no identifiable cause. That's the point that you go, okay, maybe my protocol needs some work. Maybe there's an adjustment that needs to be made. Maybe there's something missing. Maybe the cheap, crappy clinic I'm working with doesn't know how to optimize things so they can get me to that 7 out of 10, but not to a 10. Then I need to go to someone who actually knows what they're doing with this. There could be a variety of factors there. But that issue that you're having is not a problem unless it is prolonged. Because this journey that I'm saying is linear is if you zoom out. If you zoom right in on this graph, what it actually looks like is a whole bunch of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 step forward, 1 step back, 2 step forward, 1 step back. And you're just going up the stairs. And sometimes it might be 1 step forward, 3 steps back. And then 5 step forward, 1 step back. These things happen. Ebb and flows can look different. And the other thing that's important is that all of the symptoms that you're trying to improve, the better mental health, the better sexual function, the better body composition, the better, mood and motivation and sleep and all of these things, well, they're all impacted by everything else in your life as well. None of these symptoms are independent variables. So the last part that I want to close this on, which is also important, and this is like the last piece of the puzzle, is that, and I've said this for a few years, mainly because it's a play on words and it sounds good, but it's very true, is TRT takes time to work, as discussed. But it also takes time for you to do the work that allows you to achieve the outcome that you're hoping to get from TRT. Because if you've been hypogonadal for a long time, you might have a bunch of maladaptive coping mechanisms. You might have a bunch of things that you're doing in your life that you're not proud of, that kind of built up over time as a little bad habit here, and then there's another little bad habit here. And, maybe the Friday night takeaway turned into a 3-night-a-week takeaway, and then, the couple of drinks on the Saturday turned into a few drinks on Sunday as well. And maybe the workouts are a bit shorter and a bit more sporadic, and you aim for 10,000 steps, but really it's more like 7, and some days it's only 4, but that's okay because you hit 10 the other day. All these kind of things can really add up. And when all of these things have been out of alignment for a while, and then you start treatment, you also need time to bring those things back into alignment, because eating junk food, drinking alcohol, not exercising properly, and not doing enough physical activity will mean that your TRT journey, again on the video I'm using a steeper linear graph, will be more like a more or less steep linear graph in terms of improvement. So the trajectory will change in terms of how good your treatment outcomes are. This is because testosterone is not a drug. It is a hormone. It creates and optimizes the foundation of how the body should work, but it doesn't push things in a certain direction like other drugs do. So the testosterone will act as a multiplier for your positive lifestyle. The problem is the way that multiplication works is that if you are not ticking any of the boxes, if you are not exercising, if you are not eating well, if you are not working on achieving good body composition, if you are not hydrating properly, if you are not getting a regular sleep schedule with a good amount of sleep, if all of these things are off, then, and they're all 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you could multiply all of those by whatever testosterone dose you want. It's still going to be 0. You might feel slightly better after a year, but you're not going to feel good unless you fix those things. But the thing about humans, because we're not robots, we're humans, is that you picked up all those bad habits and you habituated them because you felt crap anyway. And I understand that. If you feel like crap because you have low testosterone, why not have a couple of drinks on Friday? Why not eat a bit of crap food? What's the point in even working at the heart of the gym? You're going to feel like crap anyway. So I get it. Humans tend to do things when they feel bad that make them feel better in the short term that's worse for them in the long term. It's just human nature. The thing that we have to do, though, is we have to break those maladaptive coping mechanisms. We have to break those bad habits. We have to become aware of them and then leave them behind, kind of shed them like dead weight. Some people can do that overnight. You know, what's that thing, 75 hard that people do? Dry July, all of these things. You know, some people can do that. Not everyone can. So that first 6-month period or 12-month period, now that the testosterone deficiency has resolved and there are some acute effects occurring, this is the time to ride that wave up. If you've got some acute effects from treatment, if you're feeling 20% better or 10% better after 8 weeks, that's when you use that 10% to go, okay, I'm feeling a bit better. Maybe I'm going to pick up my gym. Maybe I'm going to pick up my steps. Maybe I'm going to stick to a sleep routine. Maybe I'm going to start meal prepping. Maybe I'm going to learn about nutrition. I drove past a boxing gym and I've never done martial arts before. Maybe that would be something that would be good for my mental health. I'm going to go try doing that on a Thursday night. I drove past a yoga studio and I've always wanted to learn how to stretch and do proper mobility. Maybe I'm going to start going to a Monday morning yoga class. These are the things that over time allow your treatment to work properly, because you have to, and this is the part that I wish this wasn't true, but this is the way that it works because it makes my job harder. If you want to feel all the benefits that you associate with a high testosterone healthy man, you have to live like a high testosterone healthy man to get those, because the testosterone alone won't do it. It's the testosterone combined with all the other stuff that gives you that subjective outcome that you're looking to achieve. So you can use that time period of the treatment building up to start to shift all those habits, to drop the things you probably know you shouldn't be doing and pick up the things you know you should be doing. I did a full 90-minute lecture on exactly this paradigm, and I go through all the things that you want to cut, all the things you want to add, and go through the entire science, philosophy, everything about it. It's called Your Brain on Testosterone and the War in Masculinity Part 2. This was not meant to be a 20-minute plug for that lecture. It just happened to fall that way. So I hope that information helped. I hope that brings some people into a more realistic expectation for this treatment, because if you can align your expectations correctly from the start, you will have much, much, much better outcomes with this. So I hope that helped, and I'll see you guys all next time. Okay, hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the TRT Masterclass. I have been wanting to make this video for years. I haven't gotten around to it, and now I finally have the time to sit down and make this for you. As you're watching this on YouTube, you will have worked out that this is a free masterclass. I am very passionate about making this information as accessible and as understandable as possible.